Right, I think we can start now. If you're just joining, welcome to another Money Me Convo session. My name is Jokedi Kunle, and tonight we have here Kemi Onajole, who is the director at Illinois Institute of Technology. Our topic for tonight is really around education in the US. We will talk about things concerning scholarships, we'll talk about student loans, and pretty much any information that migrants, Nigerians especially, need to know about, selecting schools in the US or really just education in the US. And that's why we have Kemi with us here. Just a bit of house rules. This webinar is being recorded, and you'd find the highlights. Well, you find the entire thing really on our YouTube page. So you can just go to moneyme.link/YouTube, where you also see all the other topics we've touched on. MoneyMe is a digital bank for African migrants, and pretty much we're doing this because we want African migrants specifically to, move abroad, live well, build wealth easily. And one of the ways we're doing that is by providing a seamless digital banking solution, so you can do banking like you never left, right? So we'll just jump right into it. Thank you again, Kemi, for joining us. So I'll just have you start off by giving us a bit of background about yourself, so everyone here has some context about who you are.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. If you can't hear and all right, thank you for the thumbs up. Good evening, Money Me. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on the time of the day that you're gonna watch this. It is evening in Chicago, so I will say good evening. First, I just wanna say thank you to Money Me for inviting me to be here tonight. Opayemi, you guys are doing a wonderful job. I've been following you on LinkedIn pretty much since day one. So thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm delighted. A bit of a background about me. I've been in the US since more than 25 years now. Went to high school here, went to undergrad here, did my master's in the US, but I go to Nigeria constantly. I think 3 weeks ago, I was still in Lagos for a completely different reason. So there's always a touch point to Nigeria, to all things that has to do with Nigeria, so to speak. I want to say that I grew up in a household where education was the highlight of growing up, and it wasn't such a surprise that I am in the education field. As the way God would also have it, I'm married to an educator as well. So the list goes on, right? I've been working in higher education for the past 17 years. I was redoing my resume the other day, and that is post master's graduation that I've been in the field. And I actually sat down last night while redoing my resume. I was like, wow, okay, Kemi, you're getting older. But that was just a side note. I currently work at Illinois Institute of Technology, or Illinois Tech, or IIT, as we call it. And I am the director of the International Center in the school. And we're the department that works with all the international students before they get to the US. While they're in the US, we work with them with anything that has to do with their status, their international student status. So even before you get to the US, oftentimes I know about you. And then when you're here and then postgraduate, I also know about you as well. I have been at Illinois Tech for 4.5 years. It'll be 5 years in January of 2022. So been there for a while and been in the game, so to speak, also for a while. So I don't know, if you need more, let me know, but is that enough for tonight in terms of a bio, or any specific points you want me to touch on?
So guys, yeah, I mean, if you have specific questions about her background, about her experience, and even on the topic we're discussing tonight, please just drop it in the chat section here. And as you can see, she'll happily tend to them. Okay, thank you so much, Kemi, for that introduction. I think it gives everyone here a lot of comfort that you would have as much answers as they need regarding this topic. I would like to know, first things first, right? For an intending migrants, right? There's some people who are here that are intending migrants. There are people who are here who have probably also been in the US for a bit. But just so that everybody, is carried along, it'd be nice to know what's the first thing I need to know as an intending migrant who wants to come in through the education routes to the US. What's the first thing I need to know?
I would say, why do you want to go to the US? And that may sound very primary, but what's the reason that you want to come to the US? Because unfortunately, I come across a lot of people, not only from Nigeria, but from other parts of the world. They get here and the allure, if I can call it, of the US, the almighty US, is in their face, and there's a derail of why you came in the first place. So I would say, why do you want to come? What's your objective? What's your goal? Oh, I want to have a master's. I want to migrate, or I want to japa. Let us know why it is you want to actually come to the US, right? But of course, the context of tonight's conversation is that you want to come to the US for school. So at that point, then the next question is, what do I want to study? What level in terms of the academics? Is it undergrad? Is it grad? So a bit of distinction. In the US, we call first degree undergrad. We call postgrad grad, right? So your bachelor's is undergrad. Your graduate program is postgraduate, is what we will call it in Nigeria. So, or you can call it bachelor's, master's, and then PhDs. There are certificate programs as well that people can do in the US. So those are the first questions I would ask someone who is coming specifically from Nigeria, where the exchange rate to the dollar is something else. You have to know why you're coming, what you're coming to study, and then the list goes on. But those are the first couple that I would say.
Right.
For that.
Speaking about the exchange rates, from your experience, how do you think that has impacted maybe number of applications? How has that impacted? What's the trend you're seeing right now, given the exchange rates issues in Nigeria?
It's made a clear roadblock, obviously. Everything is much more expensive. Like I said a few minutes ago, for those who may not have been here, I was in Nigeria a few weeks ago, and everything is much more expensive than a year and a half or so when I was there last, like everything. So how much more a tuition of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, right? So it's a roadblock. It's not easy. It's not so much easier anymore because of the exchange rates. But believe it or not, I was in a conference a few weeks ago, and they gave us the top 10 list of countries where students come from. And Nigeria is still on the top of that list. Trust me, it's a verifiable list. It's a list from the US government, and Nigeria is in the top 10 of that list. So my point is, one way or the other, people are getting money out to be able to come to the US. I don't know how they're doing it, but it's been done one way or the other, I'll say.
I guess the Niger spirit never dies. Like, we'll always find a way. But that's as an aside, right? But how do you think a lot of these people are navigating this, specifically around things like student loans, for example, or scholarships? We'll come to the bits on scholarships, but I want to understand, where do you see people lean more towards, right? From your experience at Illinois, for example, are you seeing more people explore the scholarship route, or are you seeing more people explore the loan routes?
I would say from my institution, it's a bit of both, and this is why. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the concept of taking a loan to study in the US wasn't there. I mean, like somebody will say, what kind of base is that? Why would I, when I convert the naira to the dollar, it's not going to happen. But I think people are realizing that, like other migrants around the world that have this concept of a loan, there's an ROI, there's a return on the investment. If I take the loan and I study and I study a major that has a high return of investment, I can pay back the loan. So the trend that I'm seeing now is less scholarship, more loans, more educational loans, not just a loan to just come and faff around in the US, but like real educational loans that are run by people who that is their bread and butter, right? They will make sure that they vet everybody that is taking the loan so that they also don't get in trouble by loaning money to the wrong people. They go through a very strict process of making sure you are going to a real school, you are studying a real program, and then with that, they can make sure that they can get their money back at the end of the day. And of course, there are still scholarships. I know you said we'll get back to that in a moment, but there's still scholarships. Schools still give scholarships to students who are deserving, those who do well academically. And even if you ask, they're still going to give you something, right? So that's the trend I would say I'm still seeing in my line of work today.
Right. Okay, so let's get real, right? I know, and you know this, right? A lot of Nigerians explore the education route to Japa, right? So imagine that I want to Japa today. What's the cleanest way to go about it through the education route? What schools do I explore? How do you think I can go about it?
Okay. I'll try and answer those questions in layers, but if I don't finish them, just remind me. Of course, I can't say on any private or even public forum to do any kind of jackpot that does not make sense. So this one is, the one of the best ways to come and get an education, right? You get an education, either a bachelor's or a master's. I think the most fastest route for a lot of students that we're seeing is to come and get a graduate program, which is a master's. You can finish in a year in some masters. You can do 18 months. You can do 2 years. At the most, it's 2 years. Because really, when you're a student full time. So you should be able to dedicate time to go through all the credits that's required of your program. So we see more master's degree seeking students as opposed to undergrad or PhD, which is longer. So yeah, you come, you take a master's program, you study. That's the most legal and I would say fastest way, because when you are in a master's program, you have the opportunity to do internships. And while you're working on your internships, you become attractive, or you should become attractive to employers who will then snatch you in a good way and employ you full time. And then you continue to go through that route of the alphabet soup of the visas, as I call it, right? F1, H1B, all of that. I don't know if we want to go into all of that tonight, but I can go there if you want me to. But that's really one of the fastest way to do it. Because from being a student, you become an employee. And even from being an employee, you can become an entrepreneur and create businesses. And there are entrepreneur visas that the US does give, if you are willing to invest in its economy. I mean, why not? If not, they'll take your money and give you a green card. So it's fine.
Can you give a specific example of maybe somebody you guys were probably considering at some point? Maybe if you have a Nigerian example, that'd be great. But for some reason, that decision changed based on something that they did. If you have, what was that something that they did or didn't do?
Not at this current job, but I know in past it was fraudulent documents. Yeah. So what they submitted was fraud, and that puts a sour taste. I'm saying in the past tense, it put a bad taste in our office's mouth in terms of accepting credentials from students from Nigeria. And of course, being the resident Nigerian, I had to do the work of repairing that image because of a few students that actually gave fraudulent documents when it was found out. So they would have been given everything that they asked for in terms of funding, in terms of the admission, in terms of all the opportunities, but it was fraudulent documents. Again, not Illinois Tech, so disclaimer.
That. You mentioned something about, these people would have gotten all the things that they needed to, come in. I think I want to understand how much more can you ask as an intending migrant or as an intending student migrant, right? Some people are just comfortable with, oh, I got this scholarship for X amount in funding, but you don't know that there's so much more you can ask. To what extent can you ask? Like, what are the things you can ask for beyond the initial funding offer, scholarship offer given?
Good question. Thank you for that. Very good question. Where do I live in the US? How do I get from the airport to campus? Who is my academic advisor? Who are my professors? Is this scholarship for a year, a semester, a term, the length of my I-20? How do I get a job when I'm done? How do I get internships? How do I apply for internships? I mean, the list goes on. And a lot of other migrants from around the world, because they have such a strong network of people who have gone abroad, who have gone to the US, they kind of know like the template of what to ask. And I often hear my senior said, my neighbor said, my cousin said, let's say the person that was in the US previously, they have more or less ingrained that information in them before they leave home. Ask about this, ask about that, ask about this, ask about that. So by the time they get here, they're armed with information. Sometimes they know a little bit more than you, who is trying to advise them, because so many other students who have come from their neighborhood, their country, their town, have said, when you get there, go look for this person. So sometimes they'll come and I'll be like, do I know you? No. My cousin, my neighbor from back home has told me about you before I got here. And these are my questions. So it's beyond congratulations, you've been admitted. It's beyond congratulations, you have the scholarship. It is now, what will my life look like in Chicago, Houston, Ohio, Iowa, wherever it is I'm going to? How will I get around? Who are my professors? How do I not lose the scholarship? That's a very valid question. If you're giving me this funding, what do I do that will make me lose it? Those are valid questions that I get from other migrants. How do I get a job as an internship? How do I keep a job? What's it like to work in the US marketplace? What are the things I need to succeed? Here's my resume. And sometimes we're just like, okay, hold on, just get here first. And then when you get here, we'll sort all those things out. But oftentimes, I don't get that from a lot of Nigerians and or West African students. So those are the things that I would say we can, just do a deep dive into. What will my life look there? How can I succeed over there? And then ask questions from that perspective.
Right. Still on the financing bits, right? If you're given a particular amount, do you have the leeway to ask for more?
Yes.
What are the areas you can explore there to get more?
What are the what?
What areas can you explore? What kinds of things can you ask for to get more funding?
Just ask. I know it sounds too good to be true. Just ask. Now, here's the funny part, funny in quotes, if you can't see me. An international student is supposed to show proof that they can pay for school. That is one of the fundamentals of you being an international student in the US. However, you will still get funding from the school if they deem you worthy. You can always ask for more. That $5,000, that $2,000 for a 2-year program goes a long way. That's $5,000 less than you will need to pay for. So number one, ask. Start high and then go low. Meet them in the middle. I tell people all the time, they try and they're like, Kemi, you are right, it worked. I say, yes, because the money is there. There are endowments, there are scholarships, there are alumni that have donated to the institution you're applying to that will give the funding. Just ask. If you're told no, go above that person. Do I like it when students go above me? No. But it tells me that the student is serious and they know what it is that they want. Just ask. And then, of course, if you're told a strong no and there's nothing you can do, what I also say is when you get to the US, things change, right? So after your first semester, you can negotiate. Go back to the office that gave you the scholarship. Okay, now I've had a wonderful first semester. I was a good student. Maybe I have a 4.0 GPA. I want you to top off my scholarship. Or maybe it was a one-time scholarship. Maybe you want to make it a scholarship for the rest of your academic program. You can negotiate. That's on the scholarship bit. In terms of, for some of, if anyone here or anyone that's listening later on, let's say you're interested in going to a school in the US as an undergraduate student, for your first degree, you can become a resident assistant in the residence halls. When you do that, you don't have to pay for housing. So imagine you're in a 4-year undergraduate program. The only requirement that most schools have is that you've done your first year, right? So after your first year, you can apply to be a resident assistant. You get your housing paid for. You get your meal plan paid for. Those are the ways you can reduce the money in terms of loan or whatever is coming from back home that has been sent from your family to the US.
And what would you say, are there any kinds of schools that you think might be more suitable to migrants, specifically Nigerians, for example? Do you see anything like that that you can advise Nigerians about?
Let me answer that question this way. I don't see or know of any school where Nigerians cannot succeed. That's the way I'm going to answer that question. We have Nigerian students even in Alaska, as cold and freezing as it is, in Wyoming, the places you don't think of. So don't only think of, oh, Chicago, New York, Houston, Dallas, not those ones alone. Expand your horizon. You can transfer from the Iowa or the other places if you don't like it. Nothing wrong with those places. If you want to be in a place where you find more Nigerians, you can transfer schools when you're here, right? So I wouldn't say that there's no school Nigerians can go to. In fact, it's the opposite. I find Nigerians in schools where I'm like, how did you get here? Like in this tiny town where there's no one that looks like you, how did you end up here? And that's just a testament to how tenacious we are as a people, right? So that's the answer to that question. There's no school. As long as they will admit you and give you the I-20 and you get a visa to come, there's no school that I've not seen a Nigerian in. So, yeah.
Right, just before we move on, for those who don't know, what's an I-20?
Okay, so sorry, my apologies. I said that without giving a context. So when you are admitted to a school in the US, the school will issue you a document. It's a 3-page document called I-20. It's a form I-20. Pre-COVID, we used to mail it to you. We'll pay the cost, we'll mail it to you back home. But because of COVID, the federal government has allowed us to email it to you. So it's 3 pages, you print it out, you sign it. It has your information that you have submitted to the school on it. So your name, your place of birth, your country of birth, your date of birth, and then the major that you want to study in the school, how you intend to pay for it, and what else? It's signed by your school official. So someone like me sometimes signs it, and then we send it to you. It is what you present to the visa officer when you go for your interview at the US Embassy. And then you also show it at the port of entry in the airport, along with your passport, with the visa inside of it, to be admitted into the US as an F1 student.
Copy that. Okay, so just one thing on documentation, right? Say, for example, I'm trying to assess how much advantage or how disadvantaged I might be as an intending student migrant, right? Things like my certificate here back in Nigeria. Would it matter if I have maybe an OND qualification, a HND qualification, or if I have a first class or a 2-2? How do those things impact my opportunities in the US?
Remind me which one is OND and HND again. It's been a minute.
Somebody help me out. What's an OND? Can somebody in the audience help us out, please?
What's OND and HND? I think one is what, higher national diploma or something like that.
Yeah, I think the HND is the advanced one. OND is the basic one. I'm not sure. If
Yes,
anybody,
the
yeah.
OND is the ordinary national diploma. The HND is higher national diploma. They are both, should I say, diplomas you can get from technical schools. Those technical schools are also higher institutions, but then they are somewhat regarded as a bit lower than the bachelor's degree.
Okay, someone is saying that they're polytechnic. So, okay, I mean, are they like the equivalent of an associate program in the US?
That would be correct, yes.
Ah, thank you. I always thought that, but thank you for that clarification. They seem to be lower. Someone is saying in the chat. All right, so repeat the question for me again about the OND.
How did those qualifications impact on the opportunities you want to explore in the US? If you have a HND, for example, will that affect you in any way? Versus if you have maybe university degree. Okay.
No. And this is why I said that. One of the first things that you have to do if you're listening to this, number one, if you're in Nigeria, go to your institution, go get your transcripts, go get your diploma. I know it is easier said than done. I know it is one of those things where it's not as easy to do. But if you're intending to come to the US, that's the first thing you need to do. The reason why I said that is that you will need to have it evaluated by a company in the US so that they know the equivalency of what an HND or OND is, right? So you need to go get it evaluated. Those evaluation companies always want the original copies of those certificates. So that's the first thing. Apart from, if you've been listening from the beginning, I said, know the school and all of that. Apart from like the step 1A, maybe this is step 1B, you would need to go get your certificate, your transcripts, and your diplomas from the polytechnics, the university that you went to in Nigeria, and have it because they will need it to evaluate it. So back to your question, those diplomas will need to be evaluated by US company so that people like me who have either forgotten or who have no idea what OND or HND is will know that, oh, Joke has the equivalent of an associate degree and she's wanting to come to the US to get a bachelor's degree, all right? So in the US, the OND is like associate degree. And then, like a little bit over it is the bachelor's degree. And then after that is the master's degree and PhD. If we're talking of some sort of a hierarchy, right? So you get the diploma translated into US speak, as I will call it, and then it gives the person an idea that, oh, okay, this is what the student is applying for. And then as long as you qualify for the academic program, it's fine. They will admit you, and then you can ask for funding as appropriate for that program that you want to come into.
Makes sense. Somebody had asked a question. I just want us to quickly touch on that. He says, this is from Moses. He says, I hear it is difficult or almost impossible to get a scholarship for MBA. This is digressing from all the things we've been talking about, but he wants to know how true this is, or how does the scholarship depend on the school using UOI as example? Moses, do you want to expand on your question?
No, I got it. I'm good. I mean, so Moses, MBA, and for everybody, MBA programs are competitive in nature. That's just the truth. So it's a matter of supply and demand, or lack thereof, of the former, of the supply, right? Are there institutions and business schools that have funding for MBA students? Yes. Are there more students than money that they have available? Yes. That's just what it is, supply and demand. I wouldn't say it's impossible, Moses, to get funding or scholarships from business school. In fact, I know of several B school applicants and graduates who have come from Nigeria to the US, not only my school, with a scholarship. In fact, there's an email in my inbox right now for our business school where they gave the individual $20,000 per year. So it's not impossible. It is possible. You just have to know which school you're applying to, what their recommendations are, their requirements, of the program. If you meet it or if you exceed it, I think if you exceed it, you can use that as a bargaining tool to ask for more money. But they do have scholarships for business students. I hope that answers your questions, Moses.
Right. Moses, I hope that answers. Okay. He says yes. Yeah, so I just want to touch a bit more on the different steps that you've outlined, being the first part being understanding your why and then your what's. In figuring out your what's, right? What are the places to look for research? You mentioned the school websites, for example. Are there any other places where people can go for information? We'll come back, we'll talk about the network bit as well. I think I want to understand where Nigerians should also go to look as well. But let's talk about, what places do people, Nigerians especially, where can we go to look for information?
So even as a practitioner myself, I belong to many groups on Facebook. I belong to many groups on LinkedIn. Funny enough, lately have found myself spending more time on LinkedIn. And that's how I found Okoyemi's profile some months ago, found Money Me, registered with Money Me, and so on. And the thing about LinkedIn is once you follow people, if they like a particular article or message or someone's whatever, then it's something you can see that can give you an idea about something else that you were not thinking about before, right? So I know that a lot of Nigerians, we have our phones, we have our smartphones, we have our data and all of that. I would say if I really want to answer that question, really invest more time on the pages of the institutions you are thinking about. There's a group called Education USA. Fantastic group, fantastic organization that works with US embassies around the world. They have Facebook pages. They work with the embassy in Abuja and in Lagos as well, right? Education USA, go search for them. They do scholarship alerts all the time. They have webinars like this where they bring people pre-COVID from the US, to give talks, and now webinars, online information to students. And then, so that's LinkedIn, that's Facebook. Facebook groups really are one of the other ways that you can find information. And really the website of the institution. I cannot emphasize that enough. One of my projects this quarter is our website in my department. We're working on it. I work on it day and night, and we're almost done with it. And we want it to be a one-stop shop for any student that comes to the International Center to know everything that they need to know. So my point in saying that is that a lot of schools, a lot of departments like myself, we spend time putting information online, revamping our websites, doing different things every other year. And that information is there, right? That information is there. So keep looking at the website, email the people who you see their profile in there. If person A doesn't answer, you go to person B, go on LinkedIn, connect with people. It's not a club. Most people will accept your invitation, right? And then if we really want to go the social media route, Facebook groups are there, legit ones, right? They are there. where you can get information about institutions in the US, what they do, offices like mine too. I'm glad I remember that. So a lot of international offices or admission offices, they have Facebook groups, they have LinkedIn, pages, where they update information all the time. We have a page, Illinois Tech International Center, where we put information for current students, but there's always information for incoming students, like on the admission pages, right? So that's why I keep saying it's all this digital information that is out there. Let's take advantage of them. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, really, to get the information that we need.
Thank you. And speaking of groups, one of the things we also do at MoneyMe is to provide a network for migrants to share information around opportunities like this, right? So we have the Motherland group on Facebook and on LinkedIn. You can join. We post like things like job updates, scholarship opportunities. You can just join the group. Just go on Facebook and LinkedIn to search for Motherland. Motherland is spelled Modaland. Now, speaking about networks, you mentioned something on how migrants from other countries, leverage their network to get as much information as possible. How do you think Nigerians can do that, especially, given how peculiar we are, we don't share information? How do you think a Nigerian can do it? Where do you go to? Who do you look for? You've mentioned social media. How else can you explore it?
I often joke that, that scripture in the Bible that says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. I think part of it is for Nigerians, in that we're fearfully in some things and we're wonderfully made in some other things. We don't talk to each other. We don't share information as much as we should. There are people like myself around the world who are willing to give information for free. That's the truth. Of course, there's nothing wrong if you have to pay for it. Sometimes people joke and say, okay, I should go and start a business and start charging for these things. And, I'm like, okay, yeah, I've heard, and, whatever. But where can Nigerians go? I can't emphasize some of what I said a few minutes ago, okay? It's the same places. It is the same places we should go for. Oftentimes, when we do webinars in my school and I'm asked to speak, and I see, especially now, when COVID has happened, you see the names of the people who have logged in. You see 200 names, and it's time for Q&A. I want to say in the past year and a half, maybe there were only 2 Nigerian students who asked questions in those webinars. And those 2, I followed up with them personally myself. One of them made it to the US this January for his PhD in my school, because we don't ask questions. So it's time for the Q&A. And these are webinars that I remember doing last year, like 6 a.m. Chicago time. So I'm awake at 6 a.m. because it's afternoon in the other parts of the world. I've done this webinar. It's time for Q&A, and we don't hear. And those are some of the things that kind of tears my heart, where, okay, you see someone that maybe it's not a mistake. My name is Kemi Onajole. You can ask me a question. You should leverage that opportunity. Now, okay, this is someone that maybe is from back home. I don't know, but let me ask. But the 2 that did, one of them, I was like, okay, finally, now we're talking. He's here at Illinois Tech doing his PhD. And a lot of times it's students from other parts of the world that are always asking questions. Okay, most of the time when I'm doing these webinars for my school, before the webinar is done, I get LinkedIn invites and I get emails from those students immediately. Hi, my name is so-and-so. You just did a webinar. You said A, B, and C. Here's my situation. Would what you said 5 minutes ago, would it apply to me? They don't waste time. You see what I mean? 2, and we've been in this mode since March 2022. And I can't count on my 2 hands. I will lose count of how many webinars we have done as an institution. I see names, Nigerian names, Ghanaian names, and I don't get contacted except for 2. And those 2, one of them did make it. I followed up with him. He had my email, he had my number. He called me when he got his visa, and he's here. So let's leverage the opportunities that we have when things like this happen. And
right.
also, yeah.
Go. I'm sorry. But really, I just wanted to let everyone know, like, guys, we have the opportunity now. Please let's follow Kemi on LinkedIn. Kemi is Kemi Onajole on LinkedIn. Please find her, connect with her, ask her all the questions you have. Kemi will also take your contact details if you're comfortable with that. So if anybody has, any other question that they want to ask beyond this webinar, please reach out to her. But while we're at this, right, I think it's a good time to also take some questions from folks. If you have any education-related question to ask, this is such a good time to do that. So you can just drop it on the chat section here, and then we'll take that. If you have questions, please, you can just drop them here. But while we're waiting, Kemi, do you have like any? Still a bit on research, right? I think I want to also understand, are there any red flags to look out for when searching for schools?
Any school, any scholarship program, any loan schemes that ask you to pay money outside of an application fee, that's a red flag. Okay, so I give a caveat that application fee, most schools they'll charge an application fee, $50, $75, whatever. They'll charge that. That's the norm. But if you're applying for a scholarship, it should be that you fill out the form, you answer the questions that they've asked, maybe you give them a personal statement. That should be it. So that's a big red flag. Any program that says you have to pay $1,000 before they can consider you for a scholarship, that's no, that's not it. So those are the red flags that I would say. And then really, if you are ever in doubt, ask your international student officer, ask your international student office and ask them, hey, Madam Kemi, I saw this scholarship on your school's website. Is it legit? It looks too good to be true. What are your thoughts? What do you think about it? Send them the link. They'll vet it for you. They'll say, oh yeah, it's true. Yes, we do give a full scholarship for blah, 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 blah. They'll tell you. So when in doubt, send it to your international officer or the office and they'll clarify for you.
Makes sense. Idris has his hand raised. So Idris, do you mind just asking a question?
Okay. You mentioned something about scholarships and stuff, specialized scholarship. Can you talk a little more about them? I know I went to a college here where they give scholarship to those who know how to play music instrument, because music is the bedrock of Goshen College. They do music very well. And they have a soccer team too. Some of the scholarships that are unbelievable to our people when I tell them, hey, if you do some kind of sports, there's a scholarship for you. Or if you have some kind of skill, if you have some kind of talent, there's a scholarship to fit that. Can you talk a little more about that, please?
Sure. Just like Idris has said, there are arts or music or entertainment related scholarships. Now, this is where I will get on a soapbox as a Nigerian parent and say that, especially for those, who may have younger ones, or you may have young children, let's not dissuade our children from going into the arts, into music, because really, you never know what that interest, where it will take them in life, right? So imagine you have a gifted child that can play piano and can play it well, or can sing and can sing well. They will be begging that child from around the world to come to their school because they want to showcase the child. So it's not always, hey, I came from a household of 2 educators. It's not always book. If you have a talented younger one around you in your house, your child, invest in that little interest. I have a daughter, and I think she might have something with music. She has this nice range when she's singing. And I'm like, okay, I need to enroll you in music school and see where that will take us, And of course, my husband is the normal, no, it is, she must read science. So let's find balance. But back to Idris's question, there are scholarships that have to do with art, music, entertainment, There are coding scholarships now, right? I know a couple of years ago, coding was like the in thing, but even at as early as age of 7, 8, they're teaching children how to code. So if you have younger ones around you that can code, that can be an avenue, a leg in to get to the US. Someone that knows, how to do computer stuff, that can code. Writing, is another way to get scholarships. You write well, someone that you're just like, wow. And then language scholarships. I know people that have never stepped foot outside of their country and they speak languages fluently, as in you would think that they were a native speaker of the language that they're speaking. And those are ways that you can leave wherever it is you're at and maybe go to a country. So let's pick French. From there you can go to Canada. Canada is a French-speaking country of the world, right? So you can do translation services for those countries and use that as a way to legally japa, as you said.
And sports scholarships are a big thing too. Big thing here in the United States. I got a friend who came from Nigeria and played in the basketball team at Goshen College. Got a full ride all the way through. It was awesome. A big load off the family too.
Yes, I agree. And you don't have to be the Michael Jordans or the Akeem Olajuwons or whoever it is, of the field. You just have to be consistently good. And even that sports scholarship, even if it's not full, like Idris said, if it covers 3/4 or half of the tuition and fees, we need to talk about fees before we round up today. That's a long way to go. Something that you don't have to worry about, as a person, as a parent, as an older one of that person that's coming to the US. Next question, please.
And if I could also, can I, one more, please? Because some people might think of it as a job or something. It's not a job. My friend who I talked to you about, who had this scholarship, he didn't play like any versus game. He just sat on the bench and trained with the team and everything for the next 4 years of his life, and he got full rights still. It's not like working or they're going to walk you hard and you're going to be on the field all the time. But you have to be disciplined too. Have good grades and do the sports. It doesn't matter if you play in the field professionally with them or if you sit on the bench, you still get a full ride scholarship.
Right. Thank you for that, Idris. We will take this one more question, and I would like for you, Kemi, to expand on fees. Moses has another question about percentage of tuition fee. He wants to know what percentage of your tuition fee should you have as proof of fund?
I don't know that so I get these kind of questions all the time, and this is how I'm going to answer that question, Moses. Of course, one would think that the more I have, the better, right? The more I can show that I can pay, maybe the more convincing I am to the visa officer. But remember the quote I said earlier that, fearfully and wonderfully made. I think I can apply that to the visa officers as well. I know people who have A, never left Nigeria, B, maybe they came to the US on a full ride. So their I-20 showed money that was given to them by the school 100%. They got the visa. So if we go by the logic of the more money I can show in my bank account towards tuition, the more they will give me a visa. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not true. It really depends on who the visa officer is and how convincing you are to them when you're speaking to them about why you want to go to the US. So I will pick on someone I know in real life, but I'll twist a few things around. Let's say I'm an accountant. I've been an accountant for the past 10 years, and I've gotten admitted into a school to study masters in accounting. I have worked for accounting firms all my life, right? And I'm standing in front of a visa officer. I think it's easier to convince that visa officer that, okay, there's a trend. You're coming to the US to further your knowledge about accounting, and that's why you want to come to the US as an international student, to further your knowledge about accounting. Versus, I have never studied accounting before. Maybe I studied something totally different. Now, somehow, I got admitted to a school to come and study masters in accounting. There's no correlation. Such a person probably will not get their visa approved by the visa officer. The young man that I talked about a few minutes ago that I said is at my school now, the PhD that he's doing at Illinois Tech is what he was doing in Nigeria in terms of like, I think it was engineering or something like that. So it tallies up. They want to see that there's a correlation between what you're doing in real life right now versus what you say you are coming to do as a student, right? So Moses, back to your question, there's really no formula that, okay, if they see 80% of my tuition in a bank statement, they'll give me a visa. It's really about yourself. Talk about yourself. Talk about why you want to come to the US, what you have been doing as a professional so far, and why the US degree and opportunities will further you as a person and as a professional. Those are the things that visa officers tell us when we get to hear from them.
Right. Thank you for that, Kemi. So, right. Ojola says, so true, Kemi, that was my experience. Thanks, Ojola. On a final note, let's talk about fees. What do I need to know about fees as an intending student migrant, or I'm already in the US? Is there anything I need to know about fees regarding my education?
So on the I-20, I said a while ago, they will list the tuition, they will list. So for me, anything that is after tuition is fees. That's living expenses, or some school call it room and board. There are books, there's health insurance. If you're in the sciences, there could be lab fees that you will need to pay. But those are the fees that a lot of people are not always aware of. They think, oh, they have given me a 20,000 scholarship. Oh, they have given me $10,000 scholarship. And that may not actually scratch the surface, as we say in the US. It doesn't, I mean, I'm not minimizing $10,000, but it doesn't, go as much as if you get more fees added to the tuition. So in your negotiating, let's say you come, before you come, you ask for more money and they don't give you, you can say, okay, what can you help me with my room and board? How can we talk about my room and board? That's a way that you can get your fees taken care of. And if it's still a no, when you get to the US and you're in front of them and you've proven yourself a semester or two, you can renegotiate that scholarship and get some of your fees written off, so that you don't have to pay them. I would also like to make a plug here. I know I said this way back in the beginning that a lot of the students we get in the US are master's degree students, but there are some of us that may be more studious than others. Consider a PhD program. Many PhD programs are, I would say maybe 85 to 90% fully funded in the US. I know it's like, 5 years of school, 6 years of school, but it's fully funded. You work for the school, they'll give you tuition. You are maybe like a teaching assistant or a research assistant while you're in school. And that's a very valid way to get your foot in the door. You don't have to be a professor because you have a PhD. You can do research. You can still work in the industry that you're in. Right. And I think sometimes there's always the problem of supply and demand with master's program, less with PhD programs. So if you're someone that is tenacious and can go the mile with the PhD program, I'll give a plug to that as well as a consideration. Most of them, not all, are fully funded, tuition and fees.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Any final advice? We have about 2 minutes left. Any final advice you want to share on this topic for both students, intending student migrants, and then people who are already in the US as student migrants?
So I wrote some things down. I think I may have mentioned some of them, but the number one thing is just talk to people. There's nothing new under the sun, really. COVID has taught us that. There's nothing that you now have to hide. There's no situation that is like, oh my goodness, talk to people. Talk to people, especially the people in your field. Talk to the alumni, excuse me, those who have graduated, regardless of if they were from Nigeria or not. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Facebook may be a bit more personal, but LinkedIn is the professional place where you make those connections. Talk to people, reach out, make those connections. Don't be shy. You're really not the only student that has, gone to someone and say, hi, my name is Kemi. I want to know everything there is to know about being a migrant in the US. You may get a few no's, but one day you're going to get someone that says, oh yeah, sit down, let me talk to you about how to do it and how to do it well, right? And do your research. There's so much information in these things that we carry around. I said a few minutes ago for anyone who was here that many schools, many organizations, we update our website constantly because we know it's our bread and butter. We know it's the way we attract students. When you're on Instagram, you see sponsored ads. That's the way people get information out. So whatever it is that you want, there's information about it. Go to those people, connect with them, send them an email or in-mail is what I think it's called in LinkedIn, but really do your own research first. Don't just say, hi, my name is Kemi. I want to live where I am. And you've never done a lick of research. I mean, that's a turnoff to anyone, right? Yeah. Just do some research. Know what it is you want to come study and why before you're engaging with that alum, all right? So that you are worth their time. And they will have an engaging conversation with you. I see a lot of, hi, on Twitter. I'm kind of dabbling back into my Twitter game lately. And there are a few handles that I follow where people are like, hi, so-and-so, I want to leave Nigeria. I want to live wherever it is I'm at. How do I go about it? And I go like this, but that's a very open-ended question. Yeah. And they don't get answered. It is, okay, I have done the IELTS. I want to migrate to Canada. This was my score. What do you think I can do? Blah. That's a more specific question than, I want to live where I am. How can you help me? That doesn't work. So do your research, talk to people, network, make sure that many of the things that you're following on social media, because a lot is out there today, are adding to what you want to know about that next step. The money me companies of the world, the people who are doing this thing, who are investing their time, money, and energy, follow them. There's a reason why they're doing it. They know something about what they're doing. So be purposeful about all of that. And when in doubt, just ask. Always ask. Always ask. One of the things that I wrote down here, are there difficulties along the ways? Yes. Just ask. Ask questions. Ask questions. It's one of the things I love about, students from Asia, particularly as a continent. They ask questions. And if they don't get what they need right away, they'll ask again. If they don't get it from my staff, they'll come to me. And, sometimes you have to route them back to the person that you want them to talk to, but ask. I can count. I'll say this on a kind of a somber note. I can count in the 5 years that I have been at Illinois Tech. Now, my name has not changed from Kemi. In fact, on the I-20s that I signed, it is Oluwa Kemi. So the whole thing is spelled there. And I think the random emails that I've gotten from students from Nigeria is less than 10. Less than 10. So here you are back home. You've gotten the I-20 with someone whose name you think is familiar. Google their name in the school. Introduce yourself. Tell them who you are. Less than 10 in 5 years. Whereas every other day, I get emails from around the world. Hi, Kemi. Sometimes they'll spell it incorrectly. It's fine. Idea is needed. Blah, 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 blah. This is what I need. And they go right to the question. So, and it pains me when I'm like, but okay, where are the people? Where are Nigerians getting information from? And unfortunately, I know the answer. Sometimes we're a bit misinformed about these things. So, which is why I'm glad that Money Me is doing things like this, and making sure that people get the right information. So just ask. You cannot, and if it sounds too good to be true, go find a second opinion. That's something that's huge in the US. Someone tells you something, you are trying to buy a car, you went to one dealership, they tell you this amount, you go to the next one, you go to the next doctor, get a second opinion, get a third opinion to make sure what you are hearing is true. I will end on that note tonight. Thank you very much. I can be findable or searchable on LinkedIn. I think someone already added me tonight, so kudos to that person. I'm an open book, so reach out. I'm happy to help. And thank you again to Joke and Okoyemi. You're great. You guys are doing a wonderful job with Money Me. Really proud of all the efforts that you're doing with migrants in the US. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kemi.
Thank you very much.
Quite insightful. Thank you guys for staying until the end. If you want to watch a replay of this, please go on YouTube. This will be live on YouTube tomorrow. And you can also just send us an email at hello@moneyme.com if you have questions. Again, please go on LinkedIn and follow Kemi so that you can ask as many questions as you have about education in the US and any other thing that you think she might be of help. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you.